You're listening to the Music Marketing Manifesto Podcast, where you'll learn how you can use direct-to-fan marketing strategies to grow your fan base and generate income from your music with no record label, radio airplay, touring, or press. And I'm your host, John Ojaka. All right, thanks for tuning into episode number 39 of the Music Marketing Manifesto Podcast. This is John Ojaka, and today we've got I think a really kick-ass show for you guys. We've got a very special guest. His name is Niels Schroeder. He's a good friend and someone I've worked with on a number of projects over the years is English failing me all of a sudden. We worked together on a number of projects. He's a very smart guy. He's kind of been there and done that in many different aspects of the music industry, from working in A&R to product management to general manager of various labels. He'll fill us in on everything that he's done in a moment. But I love chatting with him because whereas we kind of approach the music industry in different ways, and again, we're going to be talking about this a lot, but whereas I sort of stay focused on direct to fan marketing and how an artist can really use online marketing to propel their careers or to advance their careers, he's out there really fighting the big fight, dealing with record labels and radio and chasing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of streams and trying to create international artists. So I wanted to kind of talk to Niels, not only about that, but about something very specific. It's a seed that he planted in my head many years ago when we were working on a project together. And it was this somewhat simple idea that every career is a series of steps, and that it's really important to kind of ultimately be real about where you're at in your career, whether you're just starting out or you already have a decent following. Figure out where you ultimately want to be, whether that's just financially independent or whether that's becoming the next household name, and then asking yourself, okay, if I'm here and I want to get there, what is the next step? And then from there, what's the next step after that, and so forth until you ultimately get there. And why this was so important to me when the idea first kind of clicked for me was just it was because based on where you're at and where you're trying to get, there's a different sort of remedy or ideal or optimal plan of action. Press doesn't make sense necessarily for every artist, nor does radio. And for some, even going and running ads on Facebook might not make sense. It really kind of depends on where you're at. So I asked Niels to sit in on this episode and kind of just talk to us about that, from his perspective. I asked him to walk us through all of those steps from the very beginning, from you just getting started. You have, 20 likes on Facebook to international superstar. How do we get there? What is the appropriate thing to be doing based on where you're at, and what should you be looking towards when it comes to that next step of your career? So that's what we're going to be doing. I think this is one of the meatier episodes we've had in a while. Tons of great stuff. I hope you guys dig the conversation as much as I did having it. So that's really it. I don't want to take up too much time with this intro. I'll just quickly say that if you enjoy this podcast, please do me a favor. Head on over to Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or wherever you listen to this podcast. Leave a rating and review. Those things, they really do help. And while you're at it, if you're new to Music Marketing Manifesto, head on over to musicmarketingmanifesto.com and sign up for a free copy of the Music Marketing Blueprint. It's a 40-minute presentation that breaks down the entire direct-to-fan marketing strategy that I've been teaching and cultivating for about a decade now. So check that out. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll be talking to Niels Schroeder from Blue Alon Records and NCS Entertainment. Back in a sec. You're listening to the Music Marketing Manifesto Podcast. Hi, this is John Ojaka. I'm a former Interscope and Warner Brothers recording artist who gave up on the major label rat race and began pursuing direct-to-fan marketing strategies back in 2007. The techniques I developed worked so well that they helped my very first client set the all-time single-day sales record at CD Baby and land a position on the Billboard charts. In 2009, I launched Music Marketing Manifesto and began sharing my music marketing strategies with others. Since then, my program programs have helped thousands of musicians learn to successfully market their music, many of which have landed on various Billboard, Amazon, and iTunes sales charts. They even helped one artist land a Grammy nomination. So if you're a musician and you need help growing your fan base or generating more income from your music, then musicmarketingmanifesto.com can help. My flagship program, Music Marketing Manifesto 4.0, is in its 4th edition and will teach you how to build an automated marketing funnel for your music. My program, Music Ads Workshop, will help you master advanced Facebook advertising, and the Insider Circle is my private mastermind group, which offers monthly training lessons, weekly coaching calls, a mastermind forum, and over 8 years of music marketing strategy lessons. I also offer one-on-one consulting for musicians who need personal guidance or help with any aspect of their marketing. To learn more, go to musicmarketingmanifesto.com and click on Products and Services in the main menu. Once more, that's musicmarketingmanifesto.com. All right, on the line with me is Niels Schroeder. Niels, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure.
Awesome. It's great to have you back. Excited to chat today. Why don't you just kind of give everyone the quick 30-second bio on who you are and what you do for those who may not be familiar with it.
Yeah, no problem. I started my music career at Capitol Records. I was an A&R scout there, and moved over to Metal Blade Records, where I was a product manager, and also did A&R over there. I got the management bug, and had a long stint at a company called Dave Kaplan Management, which also we opened a label division called Surf Dog Records, which is currently home to artists such as Eric Clapton, Brian Setzer, among others. And then after about 20 years in that position of running that company as the GM, I went out on my own to help artists and companies, tech companies, also individuals, investor types who were looking to do something in the music space. That's what I've been doing. And the last 5 years, one of my primary focus has been a label that was started up about 5 years ago called Blue Elan Records, which is started from just the germ of an idea 5 years ago. Now has I think 25 acts on the label and a staff of 12. That's currently where things sit.
Yeah, awesome. And I know a few years ago, as things were kind of taking off with Blue Elan, which is sort of the last time we talked about your quote unquote title, but you were kind of going by freelance GM. Are you still sort of a freelance general manager for Blue Elan, or are you more permanently seated there?
Yeah, I do. I work remotely, John. I work in the company's based in Los Angeles, and I reside in San Diego. Mm-hmm. And my want of being here versus there keeps me in more of kind of like a freelance position. My role there's changed a little bit. I've gone from GM because we actually hired someone to do that.
Oh, gotcha.
And I'm now a marketing and artist development advisor.
Got it.
Which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Really enjoy that.
Sounds awesome. Well, I love talking to you because, one, you're a smart guy, and we've worked together on a few projects and had a good time doing it. Mm-hmm. But you also, I don't know, you come at things from a very different perspective than I do. I sort of see myself as kind of a real, rogue within the industry. In fact, I'm trying to pay as little attention to the industry as possible and help artists develop as sort of small businesses. And that's kind of when somebody comes to me, that's my whole focus. Let's take what you've got and let's try to turn this into something where we can start measuring cause and effect and start to generate profit and grow things. But I don't approach things. Well, I certainly understand that many of my clients want to ultimately get there. I don't approach things with a focus on developing international acts. My focus is developing successful small businesses for musicians, and turning them, making them profitable, giving them the keys to that sort of machine. Whereas I think, I see you as sort of a rogue within the traditional industry. You do things a little bit differently. You're very independent minded, but you are very much working with a lot of companies and acts that have that goal. They want to go the distance. They want to become that international act. So you're aware of different things than I am, and you have a perspective that I don't have. And as someone who's worked in management for many years, you've really helped a lot of artists grow over many, many years. Not the few months months that I tend to be working with clients. And we talked about this. I don't even remember in which interview or conversation it was, but it was years ago. And you talked about something that I've remembered anyway as sort of baby steps. And I've sort of paraphrased it many times and tried to sort of even teach it in my own words over the years. But I thought it would be really fun to just kind of have you come on the podcast and talk about that, because it was really, when that first light bulb went off years ago, it was really important to realize, I think, that not every tactic, whether, I don't want to even say marketing tactic, but whether that's radio or press or Facebook ads for that matter, not every tactic makes sense for every artist. It has a lot to do with where you are in your career and what is going to help you get from where you are to the next place that you have to get. And that you talked about how there's all these levels, these steps between that brand new artist that's got a few good songs and 15 followers on Facebook and that international act with millions of raving fans. So I don't know. I know that's a huge kind of broad topic, but I basically am asking if you can kind of try to walk us through that from the beginning. You know, I don't know how we want to break this up, but
well, I'll tell you what, you said that we differ on things. We actually don't. Your
cool.
approach in what I say is probably the most important part of the development and the continuation. The model that you teach, John, is like that's what I recommend to everybody in the early
awesome.
phase.
Awesome.
You know, owning your lists, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could have a huge following on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, but that's rented space.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's as good as the platform wants to be good to you. And it's great to do all that, but what you teach in developing a business and nurturing your fan base, I think that's what you kind of do in artist development all the way along. You just hope that the numbers get bigger. Right. It's still the same philosophy. So, everything really depends on what kind of act you are. Whether you're doing pure pop that's aimed at a super young demo, or if you're singer-songwriter and you're trying to get people, like maybe the low end of your demo is late 20s to maybe even up to early 50s. There's all different kinds of approaches to that.
Sure. Okay. So would it be helpful if I kind of picked some situations that, the different archetypes that come, across my desk or inbox with different situations, and maybe sort of throw them at you and you can talk about the different prescriptions.
That's the best way to do it. Yep.
Cool. So that's really interesting. And I do we'll circle back to the different genres and things like that, because you're right. There's a huge difference between someone who wants to go pop versus somebody who is a metal artist, for that matter. But I probably see, I have no idea here, but it feels like about 60% or more of the people that my MMM students and whatnot tend to be singer-songwriters. There is a huge array of people that come through, but let's start with the average singer-songwriter. They've recorded an album. They want to release the album, and they're really not sure what they should do. A lot of people still talk about radio, although that's obviously quieted down for indies in terms of that being a driving force. But publicity, a lot of people want to hire PR agents and try and get some press. And there's touring. And of course there's online marketing. And I guess let's take that artist that they're not selling out their local venue. But they think they've got some really, really good, well-recorded songs. They come to you, they've got, a limited budget, but some money to work with. What key things do you think is important for them to do? And what is I guess actually start with outlining the big, how do I say this? You talked a little bit once about kind of going from, and I'm overgeneralizing here, but starting with first building that initial following, that online following, the local following, and then skipping ahead perhaps a few steps, but then eventually stretching into sort of a regional following. You're now selling out that local venue. And so let's try to take it outside. Maybe it's not just California anymore, but let's go West Coast, and then going eventually international. One, do you still agree with that arc? Is there more that one should be considering? And if one is at the very beginning of that, what's the first step? And what should they maybe not be spending money on?
Okay. Not on radio. Gotcha. Radio is the last radio is just the last to come on board.
Sure.
Right. First of all, if you hire any reputable radio plugger or even publicist for that matter,
right,
the first question out of their mouth is going to be, what's the tour schedule?
Right.
If they can really help you get airplay or help you get meaningful press, the first question is going to be, what's your tour schedule?
Gotcha.
Because without that, they're not going to be able to deliver very much.
Right.
Publicity is one of those things where I really go back and forth on. There is some merit in hiring someone who's very inexpensive. And when I say very inexpensive, I'm thinking $500 a month.
Okay. Are there a lot of people out there willing to do it for that price these days?
No.
Yeah.
There's some out there.
Uh-huh.
They're usually young startups. I personally don't know anybody who's at the $500 a month level.
Right.
My contact base, I'd say, is you're starting at $2,000 a month up to $5,000 to $8,000 a month,
right?
Depending on the act.
Yeah.
But they're going to want you've got to get an audience. You have to have something to start with. Playing live is the most important thing to do. If you're a singer-songwriter, getting out and playing live and building an audience that loves what you do and really connects with your music, that's the only way they're really going to do it. Just you have to think about the amount of time that someone will have to give your music just hearing it, just having a link to it. It's going to have to be absolutely spectacular in every sense of the word to grab their attention.
Right.
Does it happen? Sure. But you're really going to get, I just know okay, so here's a small example. We went out and saw, as a fan, I went out to see Theo Katzman. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Sounds familiar, but
Theo Katzman he's a member of the band Wolfpack, which you may.
Sure. Yeah.
They famously put out the Sleepify album, which was a whole album of blank 30-second tracks, and just asked fans to.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Which is again clever. I'll get back to clever.
Right.
They, for people who aren't familiar, they made an album's worth of 30-second blank tracks that they asked their fans to stick in a Spotify playlist and play over and over and over again. By the time Spotify figured out what they were doing, they had amassed $20,000 in royalties. So that's one way to push it. Anyway, took my wife to the show. She'd never seen him before. She knew I was a big fan, but we invited a couple of friends of ours. Sent them the music ahead of time. We met them at the show, got in the venue, got our seats, and said, "So, did you listen?" They're like, "Yeah, it's pretty good." I was like, "Oh, wow, pretty good." No, not pretty good. No, this guy's amazing.
Right.
He's not pretty good. No, I listened to it. It's cool. It's mellow. It's good. Anyway, he plays the show, blows their minds. They're standing up through the whole set, and just like at the end going, "Oh my God, you were so right." So for the singer-songwriter, I think to really, really connect, you got to have the great recording, but you got to be able to play live, and you got to be able to play live as frequently as possible.
Gotcha.
That to me is step one.
Okay.
Obviously, at the same time, Facebook is probably less important now. Instagram, building a solid presence on Instagram with stories and you should be on stories pretty much every day. You should be posting on your timeline once in a while. It's a little less important. Having a good, if you have to say, you're good on camera. YouTube is a great place to develop content. Just as far as having something up where people can discover you, that you can point them to. Those are the things where I think where it's really at. Those three things done at the same time, and really focusing on building audience. And it's hard work, it's not easy to get gigs, but you just got to go out, get into the scene, go out to shows, see other people play, all that networking, that real old school stuff, that happened in the punk days or in the folk days back in the 60s, where it was just a scene of people getting together in community. For the singer-songwriter world, that's really important.
Right.
And just forging relationships and being able to do shows. And then, we can skip ahead and say you've gotten to a point where you can draw a couple hundred people in your hometown, which, by the way, in my opinion, is the hardest thing in the music business to do, going from 0 to 200 people.
Yeah, well, I would have said 100. 100.
Okay.
I used to be a booking agent in Los Angeles, and I can count, I did it for a couple years. I can count probably on one hand the number of times a band could bring more than 100 people. You know, it was just exceptionally rare.
Right.
I wasn't dealing with international acts. I was dealing with locals, but I was trying to find the biggest local acts I could. And it was really, really rare. But there did seem to be something like once you kind of hit that 100 people, drawing 200 was infinitely easier. You know,
was easier. And then once you're at 200, drawing 500 is easier.
Yeah, totally.
You know, if you're great. And so if you can get to that point, let's say somewhere 100 to 150, you're at that level then where you can go look at other markets and look who else is doing this. Like if you're in LA, who's doing that in San Diego? And get in touch with them, trade shows.
Right.
Hey, I got a show coming up at the whatever. And, why don't you, you open for me? Can I open for you?
That's a really good bit of advice that seems so obvious, and I've never really thought about it. Just kind of reaching out, even calling other, if you're talking to other bookers and saying, hey, I'm such and such and have a following of around this much in Los Angeles, and I'm trying to find other acts that have similar sized followings, whether that's 30 people or 100 people. That's a great way to sort of to grow, and makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Out here we have a really thriving reggae scene, and that is exactly how it's developed. It's a scene, and everybody goes to all the shows, and all the bands know one another, and they help each other out. It's the same, happened back in the punk days, and even in the early 2000s with all the emo bands.
But that conscious
all over MySpace.
That conscious trade for audience size, though, I really like. Like I always did that kind of community thing as well, but it tended to be people that I liked and knew. It wasn't. I never really looked at their audience size. I thought they were cool or nice people, and
there's that too. Yeah, there's that too, John. I mean that's totally valid, because usually you're going to find people who are cool, who are great, and hopefully will attract people. You don't want to just do it for the audience size or how much someone can pull. I mean, you can talk about how the whole pay-to-play thing has destroyed some of the local music scenes where, you go to the Viper Room or something like that, where they just have one of those, Tuesday nights where a promoter comes in and says, you can play here. You got to buy 40 tickets. Yeah. And you get a metal band and a pop band and a jazz band and a singer-songwriter. You just get this collective musical mess, but they sold their 150 tickets.
Sure.
So, but it's really getting involved and seeing who's out there and making connections and not being afraid to make the call. Because, man, if you see someone who's doing something in another town and you've got something to offer them, they're going to be so stoked to get that call.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I think to be honest, a lot of that going after friends and people I knew and liked, it felt good and it was fun and it built community, but it didn't lead to much career growth, because I don't feel that I ever had, to be honest, in my case, as a promoter, I was able to draw people and I'd have a lot of support that wasn't able to draw people. So it didn't do a lot to further my career. But when it becomes an even exchange like that, when both parties can see what's in it for them, I think it makes sense. And you'd eventually build this, potentially tour routes around your region where you'd have 5-10 different artists all in the same sort of place, and you'd keep on hopefully growing all together. It makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Anyway, so okay.
As far as releasing the music, that side of it, I would say anyone who's willing to give you an email address, and this, the power of give them stuff first. If people are willing to pay for it, that's the next step. Anything out there publicly, like with Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon, I'm all about one track at a time.
Right.
You don't need to put a whole record up. Nobody's waiting for it. Nobody's interested yet.
Totally.
Really, space out your single releases and, try to drive traffic there. And as you get people who are, who are growing within your tribe, say, hey, if you want to help me, here's how you can help me. Just click this link, play my song once or twice a day, share it with a friend once or twice a day. That's how you can help me. But a lot of artists are just so anxious. Well, I made these 12 songs. I got to get them up. The world needs them. The world needs to hear them. Well, what it's going to do, it's going to get up there and it's going to collect digital dust, because if you release something in October, and we're into 2020 now, By the time someone's discovered it, it's like, oh, that's old. That came out last year, and then you don't have anything new to put out. So always having something new to talk about is really important.
Well, I'm making a list of little things that you're saying that I want to circle back on. I want to talk about Facebook versus Instagram. I want to talk about the one track at a time thing a little bit, but we'll come back to some of that. Let's again try to stay on this arc. So you got that artist, it's got an album in the can. Your first thing is get out there and start booking shows, and you've touched on this a little with the one track at a time, and they say, but I've got an album, I want to put it out. So what do you say? Like, I am playing
put it out to your fans.
Yeah. So
someone wants to pay you for it. Yeah. Someone wants to pay you for it, or pay you in the form of an email address if that's valuable to you.
Right. But don't release it in the traditional way.
Don't release it publicly.
And
there's no point.
Yeah. And what when you say publicly, does that include the website? What do you define as publicly?
I would leave it as, I got it. I have a new album. I'm really excited about it. Click this link to get a copy.
Right. So with what I do,
send it to them.
I was going to say, with what I do, it's all about funnel building, and everything is very invisible. You can sell a lot of stuff with no one realizing, other than the people that are buying it, that you're selling a lot of stuff. Would that be sort of permissible per your advice or plan for an indie artist?
100%.
Got it.
If it's not in rented space, if it's within your ecosystem, then 100% give them whatever they want. If I'm a paying customer, and I'm also like this with I'm starting to get this way with bands on a higher level. Like, you know what? If someone's willing to pay you, like, do a pre-order for a record that's coming out in 4 months,
right?
Give it to them now.
Yeah.
Send them a digital download. I've done that a couple times, and like, hold up, we can't give it to them now, not 4 months early. Okay, well, give it to them 2 weeks early.
Right.
Give them something. Why hold back if they've already paid you for it? Why not just give it to them?
No,
they bought the vinyl, and they're going to get their vinyl when it comes. But find a way to stoke them out.
For someone trying to chart, does that sort of get you in trouble because you're delivering in advance, or does no one really know or care?
Well, because you're delivering a digital copy in advance, but then you're delivering the physical copy that they ordered. I'm talking about someone bought a physical.
Yeah,
piece.
yeah. Does that is that permissible per SoundScan or Nielsen's rules with charting?
Having not read the latest rule book, I don't know exactly. But I think the fact that you paid for something and it was delivered on the release day, like let's say you purchased a vinyl, and that vinyl was delivered to the person on the release date. What's the harm in sending them the digital copy that doesn't count?
Yeah, I thought there was some rules that you could deliver a percentage of it, and that was why they used to see the iTunes single track pre-release and stuff like that. But I could be totally wrong. I don't pay too close attention to that.
You're also talking to someone who does not put a lot of merit in chart positions anymore. They're nice for, they're nice for a bullet point on the bio. And I suppose it can kind of stoke out your fans because they don't understand what it really means.
Right.
The chart positions are it's all kind of goofy. And if you want a chart position, get the number, get a top 10 album on the Billboard top 200 and get it because it was streamed 100 million times that week.
Right. I think chart positions, they when you're making a million phone calls all the time to strangers trying to get, shows, they get a little, they keep the person on the phone 5 seconds longer. But you're right. Not, they don't mean much beyond that. And, it's one more little thing to help overcome or to create sort of social proof with your fans, but there's so many ways you can do that without a chart position that it's all
exactly
neither here nor there.
Just entertaining them.
Yeah,
entertaining them.
Totally.
Making music they love. Like, okay, take Theo Katzman. I have no idea what his chart position is.
Right.
All I know is I listened to that album already twice today.
Right. Totally.
I have no idea, and I went and saw a show, and when he comes back, I'll see him again. I'm not really bothered by that. So.
Okay, so keeping us back on this arc. So that you suggest not releasing the album right away. Go out and don't release it until you have a fan base to release it to. Is that the summary?
Correct. Absolutely.
How big of a fan base, and how would you define fan base? So what if they have 50,000 email lists or 5,000 email people on the email list versus the live show? Like, are there different ways that one can satisfy that criteria?
If you have 50,000 people on an email list, you can almost do what you want.
Yeah, I probably went too big there. Let's say 5,000
yeah,
people.
That's pretty high. 5,000. I'm still of the mind that you're trying to grow a bigger audience. And when you're going out, so when it comes to, say, you're doing any kind of social posting, right? Mm-hmm. When you're, when you're trying to grow your social profiles, having something new to talk about always helps.
Right.
So if it's already been out, well, it's not new anymore.
Yeah.
And I think you see this trend, especially with major labels now on the pop side. It is a singles business again, and you'll see like 5 or 6 singles released over the course of 2 years.
Right.
On a developing act sometimes, and we've had the conversations with artists, not that we've done it yet, but we've had the conversation if they've independently released music before, but they're not really well known. Sometimes I'll suggest just take the old record down.
Yeah.
Again, you want everything to look fresh and like someone's discovering something new, not something that's been going on for 7 or 8 years.
Totally.
With that brutal less than 1,000 sign next to every single song.
Yeah.
It's just, people even, fans of music, and you still want to be, you still kind of want to be where things are happening. So even as a fan, you want that, just even as a fan, to have that social proof that what you like is liked by others. I just think there's something very natural about that with most people. Not everybody, but most people. Right. You're looking for that you're not alone on this.
Right. So, okay. So that artist, they're going out, they're trying to book as many shows as they can. They are trying to build the following locally, and it's slowly happening. They're building their email list. They're working the email list that shows, hey, give me your email address. I'll send you an album or a track or whatever it is they're giving away. They're selling albums. It shows all the stats are starting to tick, but it's still very small. But they're building the email list with online marketing, and most of the people listening to this are familiar with my direct to fan, direct response approach, which is all about building this kind of semi-automated funnel, which allows you to build the list fairly rapidly, depending on your budget. At what point do you say, but meanwhile they're releasing, let's say, a single every few months. So there's always something to talk about, a new video to pop on, a new track to offer their list, a new track to put on the streaming platforms, if that's what they're doing. At what point do you think, okay, let's put out the album? Do you ever are you done with albums? Like, where are you at?
Yeah, no, you can. I think you put it out like they did back in the day, back in the 60s when it was a singles business.
Yeah.
If you had 3 hit singles, the label would put out an album. Yeah. And it would be those singles plus the B-sides and maybe 2 or 3 other songs.
Right.
So that's what an album would be. And I think if I think it's okay to me. The more I talk to other people, the people tend to agree with me. The day you release a full album is the day and it's not for everybody. This doesn't mean for everybody, but what I've found is that unless you have a big tour to follow. Okay. So we're talking about acts that don't have huge tours. So if you're a bigger act and you put out an album and you're following it with a 60 city US tour and 40 shows in Europe and 10 shows in Japan and 2 weeks in Australia and New Zealand, put your record out and stay on tour because you've got lots to talk about.
Right.
But if you don't have lots to talk about like that, the day your full album comes out signifies the end of the campaign.
Right.
So when you're ready for that album campaign to be over, then put the full record out. And it can be in a way where, it's sort of a culmination. Hey, here was a period of music that I put out. It was a period of my creative output, put them out as singles. And now they are all in one collection. You kind of put it all out as singles anyway. Putting more out feels, like you're, law of diminishing returns. Right. And you kind of feel like you need to make more of a statement. So you make a statement with an album and maybe, but hopefully all along you've been doing a pre-order for your CD, which people will still buy. Right. Or a pre-order for your vinyl if you can afford to do that. But I think a lot of times that the day you release that album, unless you've got a big tour that you can talk about for months, it's pretty much, that's the end of the album cycle.
Right. No, it's an interesting point. I mean, and here I think we might get into some differences. I'm just kind of curious on fleshing them out. So for me, I couldn't kind of do what I do without an album, purely because I'm very much focused on sales, and it doesn't have to be the sale of an album. And I'm very well aware of the trends in the music industry and all the headlines about the death of album sales and things like that. But I don't see those stats as a direct to fan marketer. If I build a relationship and with an email list and ask them to buy stuff, they will buy it unless they already have it because it's already in their pocket on Spotify.
We do not disagree at all on
okay.
Direct to fan is completely different.
Right. Okay.
Direct to fan, you can have any rule you want.
Right.
And I even tell this to other bands that said, I don't care, even artists that are established, and again, because I'm not big on chart positions, and unless you're talking about a real chart position that's really going to make a difference in a career, which most of them will not.
Right.
Yes, make the sale when you can. If someone's ready to give you $10, $15, $20, don't say, oh, no, you got to wait 4 months for that.
Right.
I'm talking about everything that's public facing and the stuff that people can go out and discover that might wind up on we can circle back on that in a second. Yeah. But, if you have a direct to fan relationship, sell them everything. Right, sell them your demos, get them onto a subscription site. If you can do it under your own control where they pay you a few bucks a month and you put up demos as you make them, anything, you can release anything. I'm talking about a public facing release.
Yeah. And by public facing, we're talking SoundScan, we're talking Spotify. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not selling enough. The SoundScan numbers just aren't there to really make a huge difference. Totally. Yes, we can go back on some of the special. If you can qualify for a specialty chart, like the blues chart or the jazz chart or the Americana chart, if you can, where the threshold is still pretty low to chart there, okay. Yeah. I can see if you want that for your bullet point, but.
If you're a blues artist, if you're a blues artist or jazz artist and you're going to go out and try and book that national tour, I would think that being able to start the conversation at we're number 5 on Billboard's blues chart right now would get them to listen.
Absolutely. And again, different kind of audience. A blues record that's going to skew to an older audience that's probably less interested in singles. Right. And they're still into albums and they want to hear the whole thing at once. I'm talking about if you're a typical singer-songwriter, under 40 years old, where your audience just doesn't have that kind of time to give you. You're lucky. Getting 3 minutes out of somebody these days, that's an accomplishment.
Yeah, no, totally. I see it all the time when running, when trying to run ads via Facebook to Spotify, the small number of people that give you the 30 seconds necessary to count it as a stream is just frustrating.
Just a non-ROI.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. You try, but it's not there.
I know.
Anyway,
it's about building. Look, at the end of the day, it's about doing what you need to do to build your list and to build your live following. Yeah. And all the others, and your social following as well, but all the other stuff that's public facing, that's a little less important at the really early phase. Okay. I think you want to get people when it's important to release more music on, you have to put music on Spotify. Here's what I wanted to get to. For Spotify and Apple Music, whenever you release something, whether it's a single or a 57-song album, when you release that UPC code, you get there's some exceptions, but you basically have one shot at playlisting. So to get in the algorithmic playlist. So if you release 6 singles over the course of a year, you have 6 shots of getting onto, say, a New Music Friday or, getting into someone's release radar or Discover Weekly. If you release all those songs at once, you get that one shot to get one of those songs into those algorithms. In general, there are exceptions, of course, and someone could probably come and say, well, no, I released an album, I got 7 of my songs over the course of 8 months. Good for you. That's really rare. So anyway, that's another reason that through those points of discovery, why you want to roll things out slowly.
Constantly introducing new UPCs, basically.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
And so, okay, this is sticking with that arc. So that singer-songwriter, they're doing all of that. They're releasing singles. Maybe they released an album to their fans. Maybe they haven't. At what point they're starting to get some traction? You know, the streams are going up. We're not getting millions of streams yet, but, you know, thousands of streams, maybe even tens of thousands of streams, legit streams, and, you know, not buying them or doing anything silly.
Sure.
Where do they take the next step in their career? You know, they've got 6 singles behind them now. They've got a growing list and a growing following. Maybe they're not selling out all over California, but they're not playing for nobody. What's the next step in a career?
You're in tens of thousands of streams, and not thousands, tens of thousands. You can start talking about hiring a publicity person, because now you have a little bit of a story to tell.
Right.
Also, what you want to do is you want to always be encouraging. Yes, you want them to follow you on Instagram. You want them to follow on YouTube. You also want them to follow you on Spotify. It's very important because when you put new music out, if you follow somebody, you get an email that the new music's been posted.
Yeah.
So hopefully, if you're getting those kinds of streams and you've got maybe a couple thousand, 3,000 followers on Spotify, as soon as you put something out, you're going to get that initial jump where it's going to show up on everybody's release radar. You're going to wind up in Discover Weekly, and that's where you can really start to grow there. And that's when you're looking to bring in more audience. And not that, you know, at this level, publicity is really going to be a game changer for you, but you can start to lay the groundwork at PR. And you can start to, and your expectations should not be, oh, I'm going to be on, you know, Jimmy Fallon, or I'm going to be, you know, on RollingStone.com. No, you're not. What this round of PR is going to do, unless your music is absolutely outstanding, people flip out over it and say, this is, you know, the Paste put something up, or Stereo Gum, so this is the, you know, greatest thing ever, which could happen. But in all likelihood, what you're doing is you're laying the foundation. You're just making writers aware of who you are.
Right.
First step. Oh, okay, they got that. Okay, noted.
Right.
And that's it.
Right.
And you'll get some reprints of the bio you get written, and you'll get some little mentions here and there, but it's not going to make any difference at all.
Right.
Even if you got some kind of mention in on RollingStone.com, you know, all that does is give you a reason to go back to somebody else to try to get something also meaningful. It's when you do that over time that you begin to have a cumulative effect.
Yeah.
Where they build.
Sure. Just for clarity, when you say all you're trying to do is make writers sort of aware of who you are you talking about the writers who ultimately choose to write about you, or are you talking about the people who are just receiving the bios and things from publicists? The writers and editors. Right.
The publicist will send it out to editors and journalists.
Regardless of they pick up the story, just get sort of making the rounds within that.
That's what you're doing. The first go around is just that. That's what your expectation should be. And you'll look at it and say, I spent whatever, $1,000 a month for 4 months, and all I got were these little, you know, reviews that don't mean anything, that nobody reads. And the only people who read it were the people who got there from the link I posted on Facebook. Yeah. Sorry.
Right.
Just like when you're building a house, the foundation that you can't live in. Well, I just paid for this foundation, you know, it cost $50,000 to put in, and I can't live in it. Well, right. You can't, you haven't built a house yet.
No, that's a great analogy.
So it's the same kind of thing. It's part of that. It's just laying the foundation from which to build your house.
Now, should someone be investing in that kind of publicity before they are profitable, in your opinion, or is it like go and figure out a way to be profitable first?
That's hard. You know, that's a hard one to tell people. You know, that's a tough one. If you're getting tens of thousands of streams, you kind of need to make the next step.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can do something. And that's why some of these, subscription sites, like Patreon, I don't know if you've, how familiar you are with them, but if you're on Patreon and you've got 100 fans there who are paying you an average of $10 a month, after fees get taken out, $900 a month. You're almost there.
Totally.
From 100 fans. So I think as long as you can sustain and you have some revenue stream to cover that cost, I do think it makes sense, even though you look at the end result and go, wow, it was a big waste of money.
Right.
It really wasn't, because in order to get the bigger stuff later on, they have to know who you are.
Right. And I think even for cultivating your own tribe, they need to watch you grow as well.
Sure.
There needs to be, I mean, if you've got a healthy audience, if you got 400 people, this is not so important. But if you've got 10,000 people on your mailing list and 50,000 people following you on social, I think they'll find ways to tune out and stop caring. But if they're seeing that growth as well, they'll sort of almost see it as
100%.
though their investment has grown and they chose right, and they'll enjoy your win as though it's their own. I know I kind of do that when I
no, absolutely. And like, you'll get something that, and again, the cynical side of me will say, oh, top 10 artists to watch from rollingstone.com, whatever, no new streams, you don't see any bump. But I remind myself that that is important, because as soon as that goes up on Facebook, the comments are going to light up.
Right.
And the fans and the friends and the family are going to be really excited. And it's more validation. And that's the other thing about publicity. It does provide validation for what you're doing. Right. Someone it may not be adding revenue, but someone writing something nice about you validates what you're working on.
Yeah.
Even though, art shouldn't require that kind of validation. It should be, self-validating, but it does. It feels good.
Oh yeah, we need it. We've all chosen the absolute hardest way to make money in this world, so you need the little pat on the back from time to time. Okay, so this is going to be a really silly question, or sound silly anyway, but I kind of want to ask, aside from that little bit we just talked about with, cultivating the existing, or preaching to the choir, so to speak, what's kind of the point of this next step? What are we trying to achieve? Like, so yeah, okay, we're getting tens of thousands of streams. We've got a bit of an audience. We've got a healthy thing happening, but what are we hoping that investing in, say, PR, and continued just as opposed to just continuing what we're already doing, which is playing more and keep building our list more. Like, what's the next step in career growth? I assume that there's something else between Beyonce and getting meaningless press.
Yes. Well, it builds excitement, right? And again, it's something else. It just adds to your case. I think that every time you're trying to move to the next level, you have to make a case for yourself to move to the next level.
But what is that next level, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, I don't know. It could be, you're talking the tens of thousands of streams. You might be having managers sniff around at that point. Mm-hmm. Might have a label sniff around a little bit, although they can wait. They can wait until hundreds of thousands.
Right.
But you just might get the attention of somebody. You might get the attention of having the opportunity to open for, be the local opener on a big club show. Let's say, like here in San Diego at the Belly Up, 650 seater. You get someone who's coming through with, they're not bringing a support band on the bill. Let's say they think they can sell 400 tickets. You can sell another 150 to 200. Yeah. They look at your numbers. You're going to get that shot. Right. Out of that shot could be, damn, you guys were great. Mm-hmm. Let's stay in touch. Mm-hmm. It's that kind of thing. It's that ability to go to the next level. It's, how it is, like when you're a musician, you have to buy at the beginning of your career, you have to buy everything. Yeah. The bigger you get, the less you have to spend. Right. Same thing, right? The bigger you get, the less hard you need to work on certain things, like getting opportunities.
So from your perspective, is it really just about, for the most part, building the story so that you can attract bigger opportunities within the industry? In terms of,
That's it. You're always trying to move to the next level, right? Whatever that is,
right?
And don't try to jump too many levels; it doesn't work,
right? Well, and you talked about some real concrete things once upon a time when we were chatting about those levels. Like one of them being different charts, going from the blues to Americana to AAA, kind of a thing. Going from local, your hometown to your larger area to a broader regional area to national in terms of touring. Do you still feel that way? Any other sort of benchmarks about how to define those next levels within a career?
That's not easy. Because even some of these stats, like the number of streams, I was just thinking, there can be some misleading information out there. Let's say you got all those streams from being on playlists, and not everybody actually, they didn't save your song. They're not following, so you can get on some crazy playlists. You can get 2 million streams and have no fans.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's really hard to define, John. I think it's a feel thing. And I think that's when, if you're starting to sense something where you are getting opportunities, where booking your local shows is really easy because the promoters want you there, where they're calling you to be the support act, where you're getting, a shot with a band to play like a little, be the regional opener. Like I have one artist I'm working with right now who just got 7 West Coast shows with a national act, because we've just been building it slowly, and it started from just one, from one. And then there was a couple in the Midwest, and there was a 3-show run here. And now we've got, I think, what's turning into a 10-show run on the West Coast. So and I think that's more of a feel thing than actually saying, well, I was this on this chart and I was this on this. Well,
sure.
And a manager, that's where a manager can come in and say, okay, I see what your numbers are. This is reality. And this is what we need to do next.
Right.
And everyone's a little different.
Got it. Yeah. That makes sense and is fair. So, just to sort of wrap the topic of radio up, when does radio make sense? Are there some artists for whom it never makes sense?
Specialty radio can make sense.
Define specialty for everybody. Yeah.
Specialty radio, where most of the stations are not broadcasting that genre music 24/7. It might be a lot of public radio where there's a Sunday night show from 8 to midnight. Where there may be some 24/7 stations. Americana is like, there's a station in Austin that's pretty much, it's a full-time station, KUTX. There's a station in Nashville, WMOT, which is full-time. But a lot of the stations on that panel, have specialty shows, and they'll actually play quite a bit of music because their shows won't really repeat.
Right.
And working those formats are relatively inexpensive. You're talking, less than $5,000 for an album campaign.
Right. So these are those kind of personality hosted 2 to 3 hour shows, where like Howard Stern sort of used to be. I don't know what he's up to these days, but I know his old show. Well, it wasn't that much music, but it was specialty radio.
Not specialty radio in the sense. That's more like talk radio or morning show.
Yeah, maybe that was a bad example because he didn't actually have that much music. But what's a good example? Sorry, I'm actually like drawing blanks on.
I don't know, Rodney Bing. You remember Rodney?
Yeah,
Rodney on the
totally.
Okay, perfect. He was on Sunday nights from midnight to 4.
Right.
But he had a loyal listenership that were up late and wanted to see what Rodney Bingenheimer was playing.
Totally.
So there's all kinds of. It happens almost entirely on public radio.
Yeah.
So you'll have KCRW in Los Angeles will have a number of shows throughout the day, and you're not necessarily trying to get an ad on the station. You're trying to get your music played on that show.
Right.
And that you don't, unless you don't have the money, if you have a way of getting that money to hire one of these independent radio promotion people, which I said, it's under $5,000.
Yeah.
You can make a dent because the people who are into that scene, who are really into that scene, are paying attention to those. And you could also get picked up, like let's say you're an Americana artist and you get picked up by Sirius XM Outlaw Country.
Right.
Not only is that national exposure, man, those royalty rates are real.
Yeah.
You get a song on Sirius, those sound exchange royalties, it's actually real money. You get a song on there, it's not tens of thousands, but it's thousands of dollars that you can make from airplay.
Does it often happen where a specialty show picks up the song, they get a bunch of phones, and then the broader station starts takes note of that and starts playing it?
Who calls a radio station anymore?
Yeah, true,
I think they get a feel, and again, it comes
Who
back
listens to radio stations anymore? I haven't listened to radio in years.
People do, and a lot of it's online. But I think it comes back to what it said. What's the tour schedule? If someone's interested, let's say you're in Knoxville, Tennessee, and you're the guy who's doing the Americana show Saturday afternoons from 3 to 6. And you're like, wow, I really like that act. And you go online, you look and go, whoa, they got 50 tour dates. Right. Oh man, this is happening.
Yeah.
And then they get a little more excited. Then they might say, hey, can I interview the artist? When's the artist coming through town? I want to get them on. Right. And so the more you're doing, the more you're able to make, leverage those opportunities to make them even bigger than what they would be just on their face.
Would you say it doesn't make much sense in most cases to go after radio for the average indie artist until you're touring pretty aggressively?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's my feeling.
Yeah.
If you can't go out and tour, you might not be able to take advantage of the benefits of that kind of airplay.
Right.
But, if you can find someone who, again, whatever scene you're in, find out who the people are, who are the players. You might find someone who, does independent promotion, and you somehow meet them on Facebook or Instagram just through friend of friend of friend. And they fall in love with what you're doing, and they say, you know what, I love what you're doing. I want to take this to radio. Let me just get it to some people, and I'm not even going to charge you. I mean, that happens.
Yeah, totally.
If something's really great. So.
Well, let's talk about the final step in the arc of the career, the going huge, breaking internationally. You're now a rock star. Is that, in your opinion, pretty much always going to involve a record label? Is there any point to talk about it as an independent?
It doesn't have to.
What does it take?
It usually does. I mean, you get to that level, you're going to have a team of some sort. You're going to have a booking agent, and that's not going to be hard to get. And as soon as getting a booking agent is really easy if they can make money off you immediately.
Right.
If they can't make money off of you immediately, getting a booking agent is damn near impossible. So you're going to have a manager. You're likely going to have a manager. You're likely going to have an agent, and you're likely going to be signed to some kind of label. Now, we were talking about Theo Katzman, right? His band Wolfpack. Wolfpack famously, with no manager and no label, the band did it all themselves. They had a booking agent. They got to the point where they got a booking agent. Last fall, they sold out Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
So it can be done.
Yeah.
It can be done. But they have been brilliant about audience building. They've been brilliant about maintaining their brand. They've been brilliant about not just promoting the band, but promoting the individual members. All the individual members have solo careers, and they've done it. I can't really think of anybody else, who's done that. I mean, I'm sure there's some jam bands out there who just don't need a label, but have done it with a manager and an agent. But to do it all without a manager and without a label, yes, it can be done. It's rare. And, you probably want it because, you get to those bigger levels and risk is involved.
Yeah, sure.
There's real risk. I mean, you're trying to make big money. Well, a lot of times there's a lot of upfront costs. I mean, the record you want to make with the producer you want to make it with might cost you $300,000.
Yeah.
And that's not something that, even if you're doing well, you may not have $300,000 liquid. So that's where you're going to want the help of somebody.
Well, even just knowing,
and just with distribution and just everything, just the whole thing. It's a big business, and when the pie is that big, you can share it.
Yeah, totally. I was going to say, in terms of risk, even just running your own shows, unless you bring in a promoter, I mean, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars of risk, and if it's an outdoor show and it rains, you've lost your house.
Joe Bonamassa. Now, are you familiar with Joe Bonamassa?
Sure.
He does what's called four-walling. He four-walls all of his shows. He's on his own label. He's got a manager who I think he's got a separate agent. Anyway, this guy was his agent and left the agency to become his manager. And they don't use promoters. They four-wall. They rent the room.
Wow, yeah.
And
how big are the
people?
2,500? Yeah, that'd be
2,500.
There'd be some risk involved there for sure with lights and sound and all that kind of stuff. And
Absolutely. Insurance.
Yeah, totally. Security, all that. I used to do that on a very small scale, and there was risk there, but it was much smaller. But it was still enough that I could lose money, which can really hurt. So what about attracting that record deal? What's it take these days?
Oh boy, the label thinking they have massive upside.
Yeah.
I think that's really it. If they think, indie is a little different. Indie wants to be cool, and still most indies, look at a label like New West or Epitaph. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of them, they sign bands just because they love them. Yeah. And the business makes enough sense.
Right.
And again, I think if you're selling tickets and you're, people like your music and you're selling tickets and your streams are up, someone's going to want to get involved and help you try to grow that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and as far as benchmarks, I don't know, it's the same question. Sometimes it's just, I've had the experience where it's just, you heard something, you loved it, and it got signed to a label.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's take you and Blue Elan. I know you're an indie, but you have healthier budgets than some, smaller than others. Do you have a criteria, or is it kind of a mixed bag? Sometimes it's criteria based, sometimes it's passion.
It's pretty much based on passion.
Okay.
It really is. It's, I think it's a rare company where it really is about the people who work there and the people who make the decisions on signing acts,
right,
that they just plain love the music.
Yeah.
And not looking at some things that would scare other labels away, whether it be, could be age, could be image, could be any number of things. I think the beauty, what I find just so satisfying about being affiliated with Blue Elan is that the music is signed based on the people signing it and putting the money and effort behind it. They love it.
That's very cool.
And it's a beautiful thing. It's very cool. And it's extremely rare.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, with that in mind, with the majors, is it still all committee-based signings? Like, what are the majors looking for, in your opinion? If you want, if you were managing an act and you felt like the only right outcome for this band was to get it signed, and you did all those other things we've discussed, they're now getting tens of thousands of streams. There's a bit of a story there. They're working hard, but maybe they're not making money, or they're making very little money, and you want to attract that label. They're not huge and making hundreds of thousands of dollars, but there is a story there. What do you think it's going to take to attract a major? Sorry.
Huge upside. Upside. They got to be able to see it, and it's largely pop.
Yeah.
That's dominating, or there's some metal acts out there. And again, defining major is tough.
Yeah, totally.
Is Concord Records a major now? Kind of.
Right.
They're Interscope, yes. There's just different levels of major. But I think what majors do really well is make songs huge.
Yeah.
And it's not just about building careers. And they do that too, but they're really good at making songs huge and generating billions of streams.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and I think they have to see that kind of upside in order to do it.
So has nothing really changed in 20 years, in the sense that build a story, start taking meetings with people and try and see if you can spark some interest? Is it still the same basic process?
Nothing's changed except where we do it.
Yeah.
I think it's really that, I think, except, you're still doing it in the clubs, you still got to play live. That has not changed at all. It's just the fact that we now have, there's no barrier for distribution. You don't have to get your record into a record store or anywhere. You used to have to, you had to be signed to a label, and to get any kind of push at all, you had to be signed to a major label.
Gotcha.
And that's been removed. So but still, you have to be able to reach people. The one thing is doing things like your programs where you're building audience and you're developing that direct to fan relationship. That is something that didn't exist.
Yeah, totally.
That's relatively new. That really didn't exist much 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's there now. So you don't have to wait on somebody's permission to start growing an audience. you can start doing it.
Totally. Funny enough.
As far as, yeah.
Oh, well, I was going to say, funny enough, and I never saw this until years later. It's not like I just was smart enough to realize it or anything like that. But so much of what I do now parallels so much of what I did to get that big deal way back when. It just was with phones instead of emails. It's infinitely easier now. Mm-hmm. But I went out for 2 years as a promoter, very much focused on trying to create some social leverage. So I wasn't just another guy looking for something. I had something to offer everybody. I had an enticing offer, like I could put people on guest lists. I was a club promoter. So in the hierarchy of the bar world, the rock and roll world, if you're a bartender or a club owner, you have a little more clout, and people take they'll give you some time. And I went out, and every night I asked for people's phone numbers. We'd get to talking, and I'd actually talk. I wasn't too bad of a schmoozer, I'd actually sit down and chat with people for a half an hour and make friends. And I'd say, give me your phone number. Mm-hmm. I'll call you when I'm playing. And maybe I could put you on the list or something. And I was the promoter, and no one really knew any of this. So I could take my own shows, and I could put everyone on the list if I wanted to. There were shows where I had 500 people on the guest list, and no one realized it. Never told anyone that was that it wasn't the case. It just no one thought that, everyone assumed I probably had 10 people on it. So I would spend 4 days on the phone calling every single person. I had about 1,000 phone numbers, which, the impact of a phone number of a person you met at a bar within the last few months is a very valuable contact. And it would take me about 3-4 days to call every single person. And again, I'd use a little enticing language saying, hey, a bunch of record labels are coming down. I think this is a really important show. I can put you on the guest list, but, spots are limited to 400. So let me know please let me know if you can make it as soon as possible. And perhaps I'll see you down there. And I would fill up the list, and I'd have a line around the block. And when it finally came time to do that showcase, it really paid off. And I got this massive deal. But it's really the same process as I do right now. It's starting conversations, building relationships. Instead of spending 4 days calling people, I hit a button in Aweber and send out a message. But really fundamentally, the fundamental process of starting conversations, creating, using enticements to create interest, and then a little bit of scarcity to get people off the fence to take action is all exactly the same. And I suspect it's always been the case for hundreds of years in some way, shape, or form, and whatever the objective be, at the music industry or something else.
Right. Call now and get the knife set. So it's extra, onion chopper, but call now. Sure. It's the same thing.
Yeah, totally. Oh, so we're running out of time, but I want to just do kind of a quick short burst responses to we just outlined a sort of career arc and the different steps. Now let's talk quickly about how different genres might differ. So the quick response of like, oh, you're hip hop. Well, I would be aware of this. So I'll do that. So hip hop, like how would
hip hop? Yeah. SoundCloud and TikTok.
Yeah, all focused on those stats as opposed to the
all
others.
Online.
And why? Because that's where
your audience is. It's a young audience. They're not going out. Hip hop is not as much of a live thing as it is a device thing.
Gotcha.
It's all happening on the phones.
Cool. Got it. Okay, so let's say pop.
Pop, same thing.
yeah.
TikTok, Instagram. I would say YouTube. Live is not going to matter as much. Yeah. Really hone an audience and try to build it. Cool. All on the phones.
Metal.
Mm-hmm. Metal, tour. So critical.
Yeah.
Imaging, so important, right? Look at a band like Ghost. Go look them up. Biggest new metal band of the last 10 years. Went from virtually nothing to selling out the Forum.
Right. Wow. Let's see. Yeah, that's the one. Imaging is really interesting that you mentioned it, because I tend to use a lot of really stripped down squeeze pages and landing pages because design tends to get in the way of direct response marketing, when you're trying to get leads and get conversion rates up as high as possible. But metal's the one pretty consistent exception. The more sort of on point the branding is and the more on point the design is, it doesn't distract. It actually tends to help and increase conversion. What else? So we
killer
got
image, killer logo.
So country.
Oh, play live.
Yeah.
It depends. Are you doing the pop country thing? Because then it's the same. Then you're into pop, right? If you're talking, Carrie Underwood or Blake Shelton, that's pop. Yeah. Let's not confuse that with country. So that's the pop road,
right?
And that's going to take a label to do anything. And country is littered with gatekeepers. You're going to have to be on a major label to make inroads there.
Got it. With pop country.
Yes, with pop country.
Alt country, you can sort of approach it more like an indie songwriter.
Tour.
Right, got it. Cool. And blues and jazz, I imagine they're sort of similar to the singer-songwriter model with more specialty being a part of it? Or
focus on blues and jazz, really try to get on festivals.
Yeah.
That's something you look at all the local festivals, the rib cookouts, whatever it is. There's all kinds of taste of whatever city you're in. There's opportunities there.
Right.
But again, touring, releasing music, blues, those are two genres that are hard to garner. They're hard to grow a large audience.
Right.
Because it tends to be older.
Yeah, it's funny. It's hard to grow a large audience, but there's a lot of consistent work, for live stuff.
Yes.
A lot of opportunities.
Absolutely. But there's a ceiling.
Yeah, I hear you.
Unless you're Joe Bonamassa.
Yeah, right.
Not much of a ceiling.
Reggae and world?
Sure.
Yeah.
Reggae, and that's how it's all building here. It's all, it's Instagram. It's reggae, and reggae especially, get involved in the community, be a part of the community, and there's a lot of bands helping other bands.
Cool. Okay, so I think that wraps us up for that career arc, and I loved all of that. I think this is just so packed with great stuff.
Thank you. That was fun.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask one more question that was just in my notes here.
Sure.
Something that I didn't want to interrupt you when you're in a flow. So you had talked about Facebook not being so important anymore, and it's all about Instagram. And I know TikTok is a new focus for many. From my perspective, I don't share that perspective. I understand why a lot of people say it, and I understand the relevance of the platforms, and I understand their growth. However, from my perspective, again, as someone who's solely focused on direct to fan and email list building, to me, traffic is traffic. I just want to find people that care and that I can convert at the lowest possible price. And for me, that's still very much Facebook. And it's still, even though Instagram is seeing all this wild growth, Facebook's still got a bigger audience. It's still massive.
Facebook has a bigger audience, but Facebook's audience is older.
Yeah, it is older.
So it depends on what you're doing. And are there enough people that you want to reach? Are they even on Facebook anymore? And I do, but you can't click out of Instagram, right? You can't click out of a post. Well, you get to 10,000.
You can with an ad.
You can swipe up out of a.
You can with an ad.
You can with an ad. So it does work. I just see Facebook just skews older. I have a 16-year-old daughter who has zero interest in Facebook. It's not even on her radar.
It does, definitely. But customers also skew older, as does disposable income. So again, and this is where I think where I keep going back to those differences, because my focus is on let's go get profit, as opposed to let's set this up for that eventual record deal. Because I do see that as pretty relevant. I see it as pretty relevant if you're going to try to get that big record deal, that you do have that young audience that's going to be, the labels are going to want to see that. They're going to want to see that there's profit potential for decades to come and all of that, and that you have the potential to really go kind of viral or crazy within that young, really excitable community. But from an indies perspective, that isn't so much focused on that and is pulling in new customers every day, I still 9 times out of 10, I see the cheapest conversions coming from Facebook. And regardless of what's happening, I don't have enough money to burn out Facebook, or anyone. So there's no fear.
It all depends. Yeah. It all depends on who your audience that you're trying to reach. The younger the audience is, the less, Facebook. I'm not saying don't do Facebook. Of course, everybody should be on Facebook. Sure. I'm sure Billie Eilish is all over Facebook.
Right.
She's got tons and tons of followers there. My guess is the followers on Facebook are generally older than the followers that are on Instagram and even wherever else she is.
Ones on TikTok.
So, Yeah. So it's just, where do you want to spend your energy as far as creating content?
Yeah.
You have to look at who your audience is.
Totally.
And, the other thing that does make it tough is that the older a person is, the more settled they are on their, say, discovering new music. Right. The older a person gets, so you're going to hit a point where, yes, you might have followers there, but rabid fans tend, and then again, lots of exceptions, but rabid fans who go out, who come see you at shows and can help you really build something, they tend to be younger. And it's just because people who are older have things like children, and other lives and other commitments. You're talking about, but people in 18 to 30 without, single, no kids, they're going out more and have more time to give you.
Yeah, I think some of it has a lot to do with how I go about things. I rely on strength of copywriting and that ability to get into the mind of that prospect and start. And that's a pretty rare skill. It's not something you have to consciously become good at that. That's not something that the average person is good at when they're just posting on Instagram. And so copywriting is a very different way of attracting people than what the average musician is doing. And so I think when you are, when you're conscious of that psychological dance that's happening when you're writing good copy and pulling people in, you can really effectively pull in an audience and an older audience. But I agree with what you're saying that if you were just doing what the average artist is doing and just performing, that person would be a lot less likely to go, ooh, what's this? I want to discover the next greatest thing, because they already know what they like, and there's no room in their life for that much more stuff. But when you start a conversation with a super enticing statement that completely speaks to, it makes that reader or that person scrolling through your content in their feed kind of go, oh my God, that's me, what this person just described. They do kind of light up and they do kind of respond. So I don't know. I'm less concerned about other, but I wanted to ask because I do know that you're not alone in that feeling that it's really important that artists stick with the relevant platforms. It just hasn't been something.
Maybe it's just that when I'm looking at an artist and I want to gauge their popularity, I don't put as much stock in the numbers of Facebook. And that's maybe why I'm, because you're totally right. I mean, it's much easier to drive conversions from Facebook than any other platform.
Right. So, but you do put stock in the Instagram following.
But I do put stock in the Instagram following. Yes.
Yeah, because definitely, it's harder
to and engage, not just following, but engagement.
Yeah.
Looking at the number of comments, the number of likes, the number of just you can see a lot more there, and it's a more accurate read of where they are. I think so. You could have an act that's pretty big, and you look and they go, oh, they have 1,500 followers on Facebook. Well, because their audience isn't on Facebook. Yeah. That's why they have so few. Yeah.
And we really do gotta go. And this is not even sort of what's the word I'm looking for? This is apropos of nothing, but just a few quick words to people that are going out there and buying Spotify streams, if you would.
Don't do it. It doesn't help you.
Yeah,
and Spotify sees right through it. They see right through it. Those bots are easy to detect, and no one knows this for sure, but I work under the assumption that you ultimately are punished by Spotify without getting your music served algorithmically.
Yeah, and what about the industry?
So don't do it.
Is it hard for you to see through it?
No, I can usually see through it right away. They're usually telltale signs. If numbers are way out of whack, it's a tell. You want to see all the numbers sort of converging together. If you see a large number of spins, you want to see a large number of monthly followers. You want to see a large number of monthly listeners. And you want to see a large number of followers, and then you want to go on to the other platforms. If I see someone with or one song that has 480,000 streams and the next biggest one has 2,100, okay, what'd you do? You either got on some crazy playlist or you're gaming it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that. Thanks so much, Niels. This is really good stuff. And how can people learn more about you if they want to, connect or learn more about what you do? Where can they go?
Yeah, they could go to blueelan.com, which is BLUEELAN.com, or they can go to my personal website, which is ncsentertainment.net.
Cool. Thanks very much.
You're welcome, John. Always a pleasure.
Take care. Thanks for listening to the Music Marketing Manifesto podcast. If you'd like to learn more about how you can market your music using the direct-to-fan strategies discussed on this show, then head on over to musicmarketingmanifesto.com and sign up for your free copy of the Music Marketing Blueprint. Once again, that's musicmarketingmanifesto.com.